SMD Law is the official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Check them out on the interwebs at smdalaw.com or at 866-529-3537. No matter where you are in the state of Michigan, Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula, it doesn't matter. They have an office near you. So whether you need to send a letter to an annoying neighbor, or you're a criminal and you need defense, maybe you just have problems with elder law, check them out, smdalaw.com today. The official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Call them first, then you act.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back, Spartan Nation. We now bring in Spartan Nation senior writer who will have his first article for this football season coming out the end of August. He is a Spartan Nation senior writer, the one, the only, the great John Shop, talking about the state of Michigan State football. John, how are you, bud?
Doing pretty good. Not a bad start for the Big Ten with some news made out of Big Ten Media Day with Pat Fitzgerald talking about phones in the stadium. A couple of really wild statements from P.J. Fleck, but one extraordinarily important statement. And also, how about a instantaneous grand slam home run of an idea by the Spartans' very own Mark D'Antonio relative to the new transfer portal issues.
All right, let's start. First of all, though, I want to ask you, because I've got about 3 people have emailed me, what are going to be the names of your articles this year, or will that not change?
It's not going to change. We're going to go with Scope of the Spartan. It is going to remain that way. Scope of the Spartans will be a monthly article looking at something specific about Michigan State football. As the season goes, the articles shall go. It's probably a good time of year to remind everybody. I'm pretty sure in my 10 years in the past, as we get into season 11, I've never had anything written that was at all a personal attack or slant on any player or coach that I can think of. So I hope that everybody understands that's never been an intent of mine. If there ever were, it would be super duper clear, and it would just not be appropriate at all. So I know last year was a tough year around Spartan football, and a lot of those players and coaches and families took it from all kinds of different directions. Now that everybody's got a microphone, social media and social networking and whatnot. So nothing I've ever written, whether it's been the biggest praise in the history of Spartan Nation that I've written for a player or a coach, or the biggest criticism, none of that has ever been at all any kind of a personal knock or praise. It's really just evaluating the product on the field and the product and really just the production of it, because at this level, at major college football and at the top level of major college football, that's pretty much considered fair game.
Totally agree. John, let's go right to it. What did you think about Mark D'Antonio's brilliant idea with the portal?
I thought there was really no question that this should be an instantaneous default setting. He said, look, let people transfer and immediate eligibility, but they are subject to the new redshirt rule, which we all forget is so brand new. Last year was the first year of it. That means 4 games of eligibility. I think as a starting point, that is the absolute right thing to do immediately until you figure out what to do on a larger scale of this transfer and immediate eligibility. The other thing he said, which was extremely important and needs to be remembered during the year, was that he said it was unfortunate how inconsistent the eligibility decisions have been made and not made. Somebody may hear that and say, well, wait a minute, that's just a guy in a division with 2 very famous immediate eligibility decisions that were made. Nah, I think he said that on a broader scale. It got out of hand. It looks like that day is over, but his idea of 4 games for an immediate transfer eligibility and you retain your redshirt year, I think is genius.
John, I want to ask you, what did you think about the things P.J. Fleck said, and tell everybody about them?
Oh, boy. Boy, you know, you had a lot of pretty wild stuff out there with, first of all, it's not a football program. It's a life program at Minnesota, which is wild. He talked about the power couple coming to the Big Ten in the new commissioner that's going to be taking over in January. I had no idea. I don't even know who the current Big Ten commissioner's spouse is. I thought that was a little bit odd. I don't imagine the spouse of the new commissioner is going to have much of a significant role, but maybe we're really in for a change. But here's the thing he said that is so important. You need to underline it if you can underline it on your phone or on your radio. He talked about the 78% rule, and that is basically following the general philosophy of a Bill Parcells, of a Mike Krzyzewski. that more games are lost than are won. And what he said was they took a study and they figured out that there were 3 things that were so important, and if they could win those, they were going to win 78% of the games. They included explosive plays, turnover margin, and missed tackles. If you take nothing else out of Big Ten Media Days for 2019 and take that and stick it in your pocket, you're going to be ahead of the game. So that was probably the most impressive thing I've heard PJ Fleck ever say so far. And I don't know that anybody else is out there doing that kind of research. So Goldie has shown up with a very big clue as to what they need to do to win on a regular basis.
Johnny, what other things were said that stuck out to you?
Indiana football is interesting for one major reason this year. They've got 2 new coordinators. They got a new offensive coordinator because name that everybody knows in the Big Ten country, Mike DeBord, has retired. But more interesting to me is the defensive coordinator change. Tim Allen has called the defense at Indiana so far. He says this is the time to step back. This is what I wanted to do. I'm not going to call the defense anymore. That all sounds good in July and in August and September. But let's see what happens when the season gets going. That is something I've got my eye on. What happens if it goes wrong? Does Tim Allen say, well, I'm going to put more input into it? Does he take the play calling back over? That I found interesting. I found interesting some of the things that Mike Locksley said, the new head coach at Maryland. Maryland is the place that he's from. He has coached at and he is returning to again. He mentioned they had a lot of Sunday fun days in order to get the players familiar with the coaching staff and with him, which is a fun little term. And he talked about the importance of staying in the present. That seemed to be his take on the famous Nick Saban process. Mike Locksley, you can't win any games at a press conference, but he sounded more ready to me to be a head coach again than maybe I was expecting. And then you've got one major interesting note from Ryan Day, the new head coach at Ohio State.
Okay.
And that is this. It's very simple, and it's kind of startling. 0 quarterbacks on their roster were there in December. So everybody who's got a chance to play at Ohio State this year, basically the top 3, none of them were on the roster in December, according to head coach Ryan Day. That is kind of the story of the Big Ten East and the Big Ten this year, is what is going to happen at the quarterback position for Ohio State. A lot of people think as that goes, so goes the league. I think that's a decent idea to have. And then you had a maybe most important statement from head coach Mark D'Antonio about Michigan State, about the coaching changes that he made. He said, look, I may have, it's possible that I may have been loyal to a fault, and we'll find out, basically. And that is completely true, because what he's done with the musical chairs, with shifting from within, is really unprecedented, as Big Ten Network Jerry Zanardo broke down with him, and we will see how it plays out. Hopefully he's got the right people in the right spot. I think there's a chance that he's got enough of them that it's going to make a significant difference. But as D'Antonio said again and again throughout the days there's got to be production that follows. He knows that. Everybody at Spartan football knows that. He's got to have production, ultimately in the end.
John, your thoughts on the 3 Spartan football players that I feel represented really well?
They represented really well, and there's enough of a difference between them. You've got the incredible story, the madman mentality of Kenny Willekes, the Blair White element of Kenny Willekes, which is so super clear, and obviously a guy that's handled having his unfortunate injury in the bowl game pretty darn well. I don't know how much better he could handle it. You've got Raekwon Williams, of course, who is pretty much a star at everything he's done so far and looks to be a real deal NFL talent. And then you've got Joe Bacci, who is pushing right now to go down as the second best linebacker in the D'Antonio era and has a real chance at that. And one of the things that you had from those guys was talking about some of the other guys that are coming up. It's nice to hear Kenny Willekes talk about the younger Panasiuk, because a lot of folks in the Big Ten have seen some Panasiuks in the backfield, and it sounds like the younger one is going to be making some moves this year as well, which is not saying anything lightly, because as we know, the oldest Panasiuk is a difference maker on the defensive line.
John, as you know with Mark D'Antonio, it's a lot of what he doesn't say as does. But I asked him about how long he was asked about how long he thought he would coach.
Yep.
he kind of played it off like a while. I'm enjoying it, but then he came back and gave the caveat, I'm coaching in the present. What did you think about how he parsed his words there?
Well, it wasn't the most fun last 10 minutes or so of the roundtable for D'Antonio. And that was one of the questions he probably didn't really enjoy. That show could be wearing on him. I thought it was a measured answer, but also not a bad one. I don't think it indicated here's what I think it indicated. It's not a guy that's looking to hide anything. And I believe that that's going to connect better with recruits for the most part than if you had somebody out there trying to sell whatever image they wanted to project. Selling snake oil is the old adage. But look, there's coaches around the country. There's coaches that have worked in different leagues that are known for selling it one way, and the reality is really something different. At this point in Mark D'Antonio's career, he's not interested to do that. It sounded like he could be good to go for quite a while, or he could be good to go for not much longer. It very also sounded clearly to me like he's not looking to make an exit. It doesn't sound like something has happened where he's like, boy, I maybe want to make a move out of here at this time. And the reason I say that is that's what happened to Steve Spurrier. He stayed too long, and then he quit on his team during the year. And that's really too bad. And it's not going to be undone, regardless of what he did in the AAF, which was a professional league that didn't make it like a couple of months. So I think D'Antonio's in a good frame of mind, and I don't think he liked that question much. I don't think any coach likes that question, but the ones that followed after it were more difficult for him. So he kind of spun around into talking about those cufflinks, which, by the way, were pretty impressive. The Biggie Munn cufflinks that he whipped out last week.
Overall, your grade for the Spartans at Big Ten Media Days, John, 10 seconds.
I think you have to give them an A. Not an A+, but you're not looking for an A+. If you listen to what the players said especially, they have a mission this fall.
I agree. Great John Schopp, Spartan Nation senior writer. John Schopp, Spartan Nation senior writer.